let's groove tonight. Sorry. What's up, y'all? No. What's going on? How y'all doing? One more time. How y'all doing? Shoot. Couple things I want to say. First, please give it up to the arena organizers, in particular Ravi, for making this happen. Folks like Ravi are amazing. Like, left the administration, started a charter school, left that, come out and do this. I mean, talk about getting involved and putting your money where your mouth is. That's what I'm talking about. And on that note, I want to thank every single one of you in this room. You're either running for office already, you're thinking about running for office, you're thinking about starting an organization, and thank you. Because the only way we really move this country forward, we move communities forward, is by doing what you're about to do or thinking about doing, which when you leave here, you're going to do, because you're going to have a network of people who are going to help you out and get your back and make sure you have the tools you need to be successful. I'll be there with you. The folks who are organizing will be with you, and all of you sitting next to each other are going to be there with you. So big round of applause to yourselves, please, for taking that jump. We have, speaking of folks who are running for office, we have a very, very, very quick lightning round panel with 4 outstanding people who've decided to make the jump and run for office. And that's what we need, as I said. If we're going to really keep fighting for what we believe in, we're going to see what Dees talked about and make sure we move forward on climate change. We need great people running for office, and I'm excited to introduce 4 great people. We're going to ask them 3 questions. They're going to have a minute to a minute and a half to answer each question, so they're going to have their pitch perfect. It's going to be outstanding. And then we're going to give them a round of applause as we learn about these fantastic folks. So first up, Ronnie Cho is running for city council in New York. Give it up for him. Laurie Pohutsky is running for Michigan State representative. Give it up for her. Get loud, get loud. Kelly Breen is running for the Novi City Council. Did I say it right? Yeah, get that music going. All right. And running for governor of Michigan, Abdul, I'll say it. Give it up for him. Come on up. Yeah, get the music going. Yeah. Okay. How you guys doing?
Good.
Awesome, awesome. A little chants in the background. I like that. Okay. So first question, again, we're going to have 3 questions, but first question, we'll start with Ronnie and work our way down, is what made you decide, why are you running for office? Ronnie.
Marlon, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Detroit. I'm running because I believe, and I think many of you in this room, and many of us in this room believe that not only our party, more importantly, our cities, our states, and our country need a new generation of leadership. When the Democratic Party is run by folks, a party of minorities, of women, of people of color, of workers, of immigrants, those folks are not being represented by folks that look like them. If you look at the leadership at the very highest levels of democratic politics. And that's just not who we are. And I think about this generation of millennials across the country, in New York in particular. There's a unique opportunity for young people to step up into the arena and deliver what that leadership could look like. A new generation of leadership that's more progressive, that believes in science, who believes in the things that I think what Deesa talked about. Unfortunately, it's not a very high bar to believe in science, but that's, you know, we can clear that. That's where we are. So I'm happy and proud to be a part of this group of folks who are stepping up and offering a progressive vision for what this country could really be, and what our cities and our states, which I think are the most amazing and interesting places in American politics. And I'm happy to be here among the panel here stepping in.
Give it up. Awesome. Yeah. Laurie, same question for you.
So I have always seen the value in advocating for others and fighting for causes that, while they may not have been personally my own, are still extremely important. And I felt that was really underscored last year. After the election, I knew a lot of people who were very scared of what might be coming policy-wise. I was afraid. I'm a woman. I'm a scientist, and I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And we have watched the current administration attack all three of those groups with their policies. That being said, I'm acutely aware that I have less to fear than a lot of other people out there. So I spent a lot of time thinking, what can I do in this moment to make a difference? And I decided I was going to run for office. Being an elected official means that you're being called to serve, and I think a lot of them have forgotten that, in all honesty. I think now more than ever, we need elected officials to be people who truly care about society and have the ability to look outside of their own experiences and their own perspectives and see what would truly benefit the people that they're representing. So I'm running for office because I think it's time to give a voice back to the people that have been overlooked for far too long.
Love that. Yes. Kelly.
Hi, everyone. The super short answer is I was tired of complaining on Facebook. But some people know right away they were born to run for office, and it took me a bit longer. But in 2014, the city I live, they tried to essentially build another house right in my backyard, and that did not sit well with me. And I looked around, and I picked my head up, and I realized that there were multiple developments going on around the city that the citizens were vehemently opposing. Hundreds of people all the time asking city council, why are you doing it this way? And in every case, except for the development behind my house, they lost. We were the only ones that were successful in stopping this. And I realized that city government was simply not listening to the voices. And the city should be a reflection of the people and not local government. And not long after that, Sandy Hook happened. And like anyone here who has a child, you know that there is nothing in the world more important than the safety of your children. I started writing letters. I started calling people. I started going to meetings. I got a hold of our superintendent. And the next thing I knew, a very, very dangerous bill was defeated. And I'm happy to believe that I had a role in that, given that the superintendent directly kind of told me. So, fast forward to 2016. I'm an attorney, and I was a poll challenger on election night. And my job for 10 hours was very simple, and that was to make sure that every vote counted. And you think that would be simple, but it wasn't. And what I saw was a broken bureaucratic system that was valuing red tape over a citizen's right to vote, and that did not sit well with me. And before the end of the night, before the results came in, I was both distraught over what I saw, but I was very hopeful as I saw scores of volunteers giving rides to the disabled, bringing provisional ballots up to the polling locations so that people could vote. And then there was the rest of the night. After North Carolina was called, I grabbed my dog, I grabbed a couple beers, I walked down to the lake, and I sat and I thought that I didn't do enough. I didn't knock on enough doors, I didn't call enough people, and I felt a heavy burden. And the next day, I had that watershed moment, as my friend Haley Stevens calls it. My daughter in one hand, tissues in another, and I thought, what am I going to do? And I came home from work, and my husband handed me a sheaf of papers and said, you're running for office. I get it now. I understand why you're so angry. And I thought at this point, I've had enough. I've had enough of the sexism, the bullying, the partisanship, and then I filed.
All right, welcome to Detroit, first and foremost. All right. So I just got a couple questions just to test the audience here. So how many of you all believe in people over partisanship? All right. And how about democracy over dynasties? And how about the fact that we need some new blood in state capitals across this country? All right. That could be in a nutshell why I'm running. So I'll tell you where I was. I want to put you in my shoes. I was rebuilding the health department in this city. It had been privatized when our city was facing municipal bankruptcy and state takeover. We were rebuilding it to do things like giving kids access to glasses free of charge at school so that they could see the school board. We were doing things like standing up to some of the biggest corporate polluters in David's backyard who wanted to increase their emissions of very hazardous materials like sulfur dioxide. We stood with the community and forced them to invest $10 million of their own money to reduce their emissions overall. And then we heard about Flint, and we did the work of making sure that every single school, daycare, and Head Start in the city were tested for lead in the water. 360 schools. That protocol is now model practice nationwide. But you got to imagine where I was. I was in this position, I'm a doctor, and I was rebuilding an agency that had been shut down by the state, while I was watching as our state was poisoning the same kinds of kids I was trying to protect right here in Detroit, who looked a lot like the same poor, vulnerable, low-income, ethnic minority children. I'm the child of immigrants, and I grew up in this state. I know what this state gave me, and I know the opportunities that are there to protect. And so for me, it was a moment where I had to ask myself, am I going to continue to be an agent of my own discrimination? I'm young, I'm brown, I'm Muslim. Or am I going to stand up and do the work that I know we need to do for a state like this? And that, for me, is why I ran.
You know what I love about these guys so far? How many times have you seen somebody run for office and you're like, is what they saying genuine, right? And all four, like, just spoke from here. And those are the type of people we want to represent us as we move forward. Second question, we'll start with Abdul and work our way down, is you guys have already announced you're in the game, you're in the arena. What has been amazing since you've done it, and what has been something that you were not expecting when you announced you were going to run for office?
So I'm a doctor and a scientist by training, and one of the things about being a scientist, one of my mentors told me, you should always look at your data before you start analyzing it. You should just look at the spreadsheet. Running for office, I've been to 60 different cities, 30 different counties, hundreds of rooms, spoken to thousands of voters. And it's almost like I am training my own mental model on all the people I get to shake hands with. And what's fascinating to me is that people make a lot about the regional differences in the issues that people articulate around what our state suffers. But no matter where you go, they may be speaking somewhat different language or talking about different vignettes in their life, but they talk about the same set of challenges, whether it's the fact that people feel locked out of our economy, or they know that their kid's getting a substandard education in their public school, or the fact that they fear that in this state that is home to 21% of the world's fresh water, that we may not actually have that in the future. And the sad struggle is, whether it's here in Detroit or in Flint, we struggle to get people clean drinking water. So people talk about the same set of issues, and I'm training my mind on that data set, and that's been amazing. One of the hardest challenges, though, is, again, I'm young, brown, and Muslim, right? And to a lot of folks, that's like the killer trifecta, not in a good way. But I'll tell you, once we get past the cynicism or the skepticism, a moment in our politics, a culture of fear that tells us that we can't see eye to eye across differences, whether they be regional or racial or religious, once we get past that, it's amazing to me how many of the people that people told me I could not actually appeal to were simply appealing to, right? And while they're asking, how's he going to win rural, lower middle income voters, we're just going to talk to rural middle income voters. That's how you win those voters.
The most amazing thing that I've experienced has been the unqualified and unmitigated support I've gotten from both friends and family and strangers. I have here in the audience today several friends, folks from Indivisible. I've got my friend Haley Stevens somewhere. She may have stepped out. And even from friends and family that have been exceptionally Republican their whole lives have offered their support. And that's because I try to start every conversation from the standpoint that you are dealing with a decent human being. And as a decent human being, we all want the same things. We want to be happy and healthy and safe. And if you start from that basis, then you will find that almost every argument after that becomes easy. As I go door to door and I've met some of my awesome neighbors. I say, hey, we all want these same things, and we're all neighbors, and we should act like it. And I find that that has been the most persuasive argument. One of the hardest things, as I mentioned before, is I'm a mom. And anybody that is running for office will tell you as a parent, it's burdensome. It's hard to juggle a job, kids, and work. But with the amazing support from my friends and family, it has made that burden a lot easier.
So for me, the most amazing thing about running so far has been people who have come up to me, who I've maybe met in passing, they may have heard about me from somebody else, and said, I know that people, whoever, have said things to you, like, you're too young, you're too this, you're too that, whatever the case may be. And I know that that's probably discouraging. Please don't let it be, because we need people like you. And that sounds like I'm building myself up, but the fact is, they don't know me that well. So this isn't about me. This is about them wanting to see change in their government. And the fact that I can be a vehicle for that is very humbling, and just, it keeps me very determined. So on the other side of that coin, the hardest thing has always, for me, been, you're too young, you're too inexperienced, you're too aggressive, which I'm sure a lot of women have heard in this room, and just trying to not let it get in your head, because that has nothing to do with why I decided to run and why anyone decides to run. So I think there are always going to be people who try and discourage you and just pick at any little crack that they can find. And it's a struggle, but you have to rise above it. You cannot let that change your mind about what you're doing, and it can't distract you from your goal.
I don't know what y'all are talking about. It's been pretty easy. But no, it's incredibly difficult. It's a huge challenge. And I think a couple of things that surprised me. In Democratic politics in New York City, a progressive liberal place, how unprogressive and liberal it has been in the conversations I've had with a lot of folks saying, for instance, don't you think wouldn't you be more comfortable if you ran in, let's say, Chinatown? Or Queens? These are places that have people that look more like me. I'm not even Chinese, but anyway. And, well, you know, why would I live there? Why would I live here in the East Village. And they're like, well, you know. It's that kind of stuff, how pronounced some of that old kind of identity politics that I think a lot of us are still trying to push back and redefine for our own generation, that I wasn't necessarily expecting how pronounced a lot of that is. You know, set aside the fact that I'm young and, you know, I wasn't born and raised in New York City, a lot of those kinds of things that I heard. Like, you don't really belong, you don't look like us, you haven't really been here long enough, we don't know us the way that our people do. I said, well, that sounds like something Donald Trump has said. I don't know if we should be applying that in Democratic politics in New York. So that was one of the most, I think, surprising things, and that maybe I was naive and I wasn't expecting. I think the second thing that was, you know, to the contrary, something that was more inspiring was the folks that had come out of the woodwork, and many of us have mentioned just now about friends and family and colleagues who were encouraging and inspired by your running. And I think so much of what I'm trying to do is demystify that for a generation that, if you haven't been around politics, and I have, I've worked in presidential campaigns, I worked at the White House, this is stuff that I've been around most of my life, but it's still a lot of stuff that I've never been around. Being the candidate, being the guy that has to raise the money to pay for the signs and the staff. It's, you know, it's wearing you've seen people with a Ronnie Cho shirt on. It's a very strange thing to see.
That is strange.
Yeah. Seeing your face on bodegas around New York City, also a very strange thing to see. But that's sort of, you know, it's what it takes. And I think what's been surprising is just how excited people have been around the candidacy. And just, you know, even folks who I know who are not going to vote for me have said, gosh, you know, go for it. I'm glad you're doing it. Good luck to you. And, you know, that's a nice thing to see. I think they're happy to see a young face that is stepping in like folks here.
Before I get to the last question, really quick, I want to say two things. One, you all heard them say that their family and their friends have their back. And know, again, if you're thinking about this, there's a slew of people you're probably not even thinking about who's going to have your back, including everyone in this room. And the second thing I want to say is don't let anybody tell you can't run because you're too young, you're a woman, you're brown, you're Muslim, F all that. If you want to run for office, damn it, run for office and go out there and win this shit. Sorry. I know Trump and crew trying to bring back some old days, but we ain't doing that shit. So, okay.
Marlon, when you running, man?
Next question. So, final question. And you kind of just mentioned a second ago. Fundraising, call time, going out knocking on doors, things that like, particularly on the fundraising part, you're like, oh man, I gotta get on the phone, right? What do you do to get hype? Like, do you listen to music beforehand? Do you meditate? Like, what do each of you do to prepare yourself for like the day of campaign that's getting ready to happen?
Me first. All of those things. I mean, I think a lot of it is just picking a time and routinize, like anything else, like going to the gym, going to church, whatever it is that you have in your life, that you just make it part of your life. And I think that's the biggest challenge as a candidate. It's like there's no one else that can do that. No one's your boss. You're doing it yourself. If you don't get up and make those calls, make those emails, go to those coffees, those meetings, no one else is doing it for you. So if you're really in it and you want to win, then there are things you have to do that no one else can. And you can't ask other people to do what you yourself are not willing to do when it comes to raising money, knocking on doors, taking hard, tough, mean-spirited questions. You got to be the one that does it. And so, part of my routine is just schedule it, and you just got to keep your head down and burrow through it. Because the thing that we're trying to fight against, the inertia of what's happening and the struggle of getting into office as a young person, a new person, is bigger than whatever pain I'm going to go through for 2 hours each day to raise money. It's, if you believe, as many of us in this room I know believe, that government can and should be a force of good in your life, then I can get through this. If you believe that we need a better and newer generation of leadership for people who documentation, their legal status is going to bring them ICE raids, and there are women who can't get the jobs that they deserve to get, and there are people of color who can't get by, and there's workers who just cannot pay for their future and their retirement and the life that they have fought for. Those are things that are far bigger and more important and more pressing than I think the few hours it'll take for me to knock on doors, to make the calls, to change a little bit of those outcomes. So I think for all of us, it's part of the deal. It's not the most exciting element. It's not sexy. It's not, for those of us who watched way too many episodes of The West Wing, they don't show this stuff. But it's what it takes to win, and if that's what it takes to change the outcomes and to project a better vision and a better political imagination of what is possible for our folks in our neighborhoods across the country and in our cities, then that's what it takes. And I think, like anything else, if it's worthwhile, it's going to be tough and everything hard. Nothing good has come out of anything easy, and I think that's what all of us are up against.
Ronnie basically said he wakes up hype.
I wake up hype. That's true. Yeah.
So you brought up fundraising in particular, and I didn't grow up extremely privileged. So it's very difficult for me just on a personal level to ask people for money, which is what fundraising is. So I have had to kind of separate Laurie Pohutsky, who does not ask people for money, and the candidate who knows that this is something that has got to be done if I want to make the change that I'm looking to make. So it's just kind of a mental thing to get over, and that just helps. I would never do that, but the candidate would, and she has to, and it's for good reasons. And I also have a playlist. My campaign manager definitely walked in on me just rocking out to that The Greatest song by Sia, and the first time it was really embarrassing, and now everyone's just used to it, so that's how I get
But you raised some money, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Definitely.
Short answer is Beastie Boys. It's always a good one. And actually, I agree a lot with Laurie. It is hard asking for money, especially when you know that you're asking for money from people who probably need the most help but have the least. And that's always stressful. And so when people tell me, you know, I want to support you, but I don't know how or I can't, I say, you know what, just social media. Spread the word, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, put up a yard sign. It doesn't have to be a monetary gift. Of course, it's appreciated. If you have any rich uncles, just tell me. And it's it's hard to separate yourself from that. But again, with the support of friends and family, that does make it easier. I look at my kids and I think, I got to do this for them. And my kids are also adorable, so I'm hoping maybe I could just hold them up and people throw money at me. It hasn't worked yet, but it's coming. It's summertime. It's going to be a great summer. So that's how I try to do it. Beastie Boys, cute kids, separate yourself, and yeah.
So my experience of running for office so far has been as, in effect, a glorified beggar with really good social media. You just call all your friends and ask them for money, and then post about it on Facebook. Now, there are a couple things. So I always believed, that if you can find the hardest part of your job, which in my case is no question call time, and you do 4 to 6 hours on the phone, you've got your pitch. Hi, my name's Dr. Abdul, and I'm a Democratic candidate for governor in the state of Michigan, et cetera, et cetera. You figure out how to make it the most fun part of your work, then you will never work a day in your life, right? And so it's figuring out how to find the game, and then you have your cultural touch points. For me, sometimes it's Rage Against the Machine on the way to the office. I've got a gigantic poster of Muhammad Ali after he beat Sonny Liston, and it's not the famous one where he's standing over Liston. It's when he goes to the press corps and says, "Eat your words." And then on my team, there's this sort of video that's been going relatively viral within the team now of who's ever seen Glengarry Glen Ross? Coffee is for closers. Always be closing, and that's been a pretty good touch point for me. But in all seriousness, I had the opportunity to go to medical school, which taught me a couple things. First, this is not as bad as medical school. Second, I had the opportunity to actually sit with many, many real people, and the interesting parallel between medicine and politics is that you have random people who will come up to you and tell you everything about their lives. And if you listen, there's a moment where you can see exactly what you're working for. And for me, there are always people in any engagement that I try and remember, and I try and say, I'm going to save you for later. Because they're the people you work for. And if you remember the value of the work, that we are working for a more just, a more sustainable, a more equitable world where everybody has the kind of opportunity to live the life that everybody should have in a country like ours, it reminds you why you do it. And that, to me, is I think, the most motivating, as it was for you. So,
awesome. What do you guys think? What do we think? I want to thank you for being on the panel today. I want you guys to not just give one more round of applause, but give a standing ovation. These guys are running for office. Give it up.